Beep boop, greetings and welcome to the Going Rogue Gaming Podcast, a roguelike podcast about roguelike games. I am your robot host, GR-0GP Scott Berger. I am, query interrupted, joined by my segfault rogues gallery of co-hosts. Beep boop.
Greetings, it is I, Y45 Defender, Colin.
Yeah, and I'm a pile of angry, rusted scrap metal in the corner.
Ah, salvage, I see.
Yes. Today we are talking about Cogmind, released October 16th, 2017, early access on Steam, but also DRM free on the GridSage Games website. This is a roguelike, a traditional roguelike game developed by a solo dev, Josh G, who is a solo dev working from Taiwan. And Cogmind this week rolls in at our 344th most popular roguelike in our data set, with 1,314 total reviews in the distribution at the 90th percentile. Colin, you have come across a terminal that hacks into this podcast, and you have your hacking suite enabled, you have your system suite enabled, and you are ready to hack into the podcast entry for Cogmind.
All right, what's my percent chance of success?
Your percent chance is 75%, but I'm guessing that the lore entry will...
I rolled a nat 1, so apparently I don't hack into that computer.
But luckily, there's another terminal right next to you that has not been shut down, and you can hack that one for the lore
there
entry.
We go. That's 11, so that hack's gonna work. Yeah, so Cogmind is it is an actual traditional roguelike, something we haven't played that much of. But I guess it's untraditional in some ways because the thing that I like the most about it is like you are a constantly evolving, constantly mutating robot. The things that you start out with will have almost no bearings on what you have on you 2 levels later. Things are constantly being blown off of your core, and you're trying to run and grab the wheels of the bot you just killed and slap them on so you can get away from the robots that are following you. It's a fairly, I would say that it's a fairly difficult game in that you are not, combat builds are different, are hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
The enemies are hard, and I don't think it's intended for you to fight everything. You shouldn't be blasting your way through the levels. You have to pick and choose your fights. And slowly build up your bot, and hopefully keep a couple of the good things you found along the way, and make your way to Robot Zion.
Yeah, I think this game, compared to I think the only other traditional roguelike games, grid-based, turn-based permadeath RPGs with bad graphics, have been sort of the stars of the pit, and I guess to some extent hack/loot, if anyone remembers that one.
Oh, Dungeons of Dreadmore.
Dungeons of Dreadmore.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Dungeons of Dreadmore is the most traditional one that we've done.
Yeah, how could I forget Dreadmore? And yeah, all those games are very fight monster heavy, but this one feels like it goes in the complete opposite direction, where you are... I guess it's not fair to say that you're penalized for combat, but you're strongly disincentivized from fighting everything you see.
Yeah, you can fight, but you shouldn't just stand and fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a rear guard action where you shoot the things that are fast and run away from the things that are slow. That's my general strategy.
One thing I particularly like about Cogmind is that it feels very it feels like you get the aesthetic and the world that you're in almost immediately. So you are in Cogmind. You are a robot that ascends from the depths of I think it's like the trash or rubbish bin from this humongous robot factory. And every level that you get to next, I like that it reminds you of your goal. And you have one goal, and that is to escape. And very much in the opposite end of the spectrum from like what we've seen with the Pit or Dreadmore, with those, like you're descending down to some goal. But in this case, you're ascending up to escape from this robot factory.
Reminds me of some other game, Slay the something. I don't remember, where you're ascending some kind of a spire. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And much like Slay the Spire, you have all sorts of stealth mechanics and hacking and lots of typing going on, and lots of hacking commands to memorize along the way. It's basically the exact same game, is what we're trying to say.
Maybe Slay the Spire was inspired by this game because it did come out after. So, who knows?
And so with that, all of the praise of the game is done. Right now, we're on to the lengthy
the diatribe.
All
right,
2 minutes of hate.
Have at it.
No, okay. I'll just be fair here. So you guys have all, we're just talking about this. What, Scott, you're at 1,000 hours, 10,000 hours in the game.
I think even if I was at 1,000 hours, I would probably, I think like 1,000 hours, you've probably seen all the content in the game. I crossed over the 100-hour mark this weekend, and I still feel like I'm maybe, I don't know, have explored 35-40% of the game in total. I feel
what do you mean by that? Like, what do you think is not there? What is your unknown unknowns or your known unknowns?
My unknown unknowns are things about delving into interactions with like NPC factions deeper. So did
you say they just released that content like last weekend? And so obviously you haven't like.
No, they just released more.
Yeah, I mean,
it just keeps coming out with more.
Yeah,
so
the development for this game is fascinating to follow because there's a lot of stuff in this, but it doesn't feel overwhelming with like, oh my god, I have to keep on top of all of this stuff. Like, I feel like you can play through a run of Cogmind and not need to be like to memorize every little detail about the game. But there is a lot of stuff that if you choose to go down that path, there's a whole like different entire branch of different strategy that awaits you. And one that just released, so at time of recording, we're recording just after one of the major reworks to the garrisons, which are basically like where enemies spawn out of. And you can go into these areas, and it's a whole separate level biome. And I was streaming this for Will a few days ago, like, okay, let's check this out, let's go into this new area that like I've been in here before, but I want to see what's reworked in here. Basically my
absolutely smashed immediately.
I mean, yes, but I don't know if I was playing super optimally. But my goal was to be a flight-based speed hacking melee slasher robot, and shit goes down, things start blowing up, I lose my flying fortress, and so I'm like, okay, I guess I got to slap on some treads here and start tank treading around, and then more things just keep exploding. And Will's like, okay, well, when does the fun start? I'm like, just look at it. Look at all the explosions and robots and everything.
Are you kidding me? Look at what? Look at what? This is my big gripe. I boot this game up. I'm looking at the starting screen. I'm like, what am I? I see a bunch of like
you're looking at the Matrix.
8x8 pixels. Is that what a square is? Something like that. You can't make anything look good in 8x8. And I might be getting that wrong, but it's so incredibly small. It's like what a robot is it just looks ridiculously stupid and simplistic. I couldn't tell what I was for the longest time. I had to move around and be like, oh, that strange set of blocks there.
The blue thing.
Oh,
you're a blue C for Cogmind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then when it just this game, and the first time I booted up too, I'm just looking at this interface and I'm just like, I shut it down. I tried it again the next day. I opened it up. I looked at it for a minute, read some of the documentation. Oh no, I just couldn't. And then I
Says-
started playing and I tried to get into it. I'm like, okay, here we go. I know what things do now. And it was just not fun at all. The game loops, the mechanics about, yeah, you got to balance your energy, and the types of weapons and the types of enemies have different things that they're weak and strong against, but you have to right click them. You have to right click everything because you need to see what everything and it's just like, and this is all these attributes are assigned to this little like strange looking square on the screen. You're like, oh, this is some epic monster. And this other square right over here that's almost identical to it. Oh, this is just a little peon and it can't do anything to you. And it's just like, that's stupid. I'm sorry, game creator, but this game is not for people like me who need like 32 by 32 or just something where like it's slightly more than what you've reduced it to.
So I hear your critique, and I'm curious how you square that with your love of War Sim: The
It's
Realm
very
of
easy.
Eslona.
It's very easy. It's not even, yeah. So that's a text-based game. Complete text. Everything that's interesting is like, well, first of all, like I played this game as an optimizer of a betting game, and so it wasn't all the blocks of text, all the lore drops, all that crap. I kind of skipped through a lot of that stuff, but most of it was just navigating screens where it's like, here is text. It's not like, here is like a square with 8 pixels where I'm supposed to guess what the hell this is. It's like when they actually do ASCII art, it was beautiful ASCII art. Like interesting at least. Like the faces, the buildings, the like the shipyard. These were like well done, I thought. In this game, you do get ASCII art, but you're right clicking on everything to see the shape of something which you only see in like the details menu. And it's just like, no, the actual gameplay, you don't interact with that stuff. You don't. It's just.
So I guess my question too is, if this exact like gameplay is the same, but everything reskinned in very high quality art,
like Dreadmore sprites or something, right?
Yes, of course, like Dreadmore art.
Or, well, not like that.
I mean, honestly,
you mean like in terms of size?
Yeah,
that would help a lot. It wouldn't fix everything, but that would improve my rating of this game by 2 or 3 points by minimum at a minimum.
Wow. I will. So yeah, I guess like I will submit to Will's criticism of that, like the main sort of field of view that you have. So this game is, like other traditional roguelikes, is top down. You have your character model, which is literally just like
a stylized C.
Yeah, it's a stylized C. It's a single tile, and it can be hard to see. Because I'm insane. I think I played like the 10 or 15 hours of this on the Steam Deck over the past like week or so. And that was kind of testing my eyesight pretty bad. I think if someone hadn't, there was like a community layout that you could map like a magnifier to one of the back buttons. And I was constantly hitting that of like, okay, I don't need glasses. I don't need them because I have this magnifier. This is also maybe one of like, and this game was clearly not designed to play on a Steam Deck. That being said, if it were, because like the pit, I mean, also not kind of optimized for the Steam Deck, but you can see it. Dreadmore, you can see it. If Cogmind, I think, had that kind of friendlier graphical approach, I think it would open itself a lot more to a broader community. Now, that being said, I do really like, the weapons that are down on the ground and not being like overwhelmed with the visual complexity of them. I can right click it, and the very War Sim-y like ASCII art design of like, oh, this like super automated Gauss cannon or this heavy linear accelerator weapon. I'm like, that's pretty dope. Like the way that is designed and just very like artistically sci-fi created. I feel like I am like, this is what a robot would see if it looked at this thing on the ground.
Yeah, I think it's extremely thematic. Like,
yes.
I think it works. The whole visual aesthetic of it works really well as a complement to the theme. I will say that it has one of the criticisms I have for like a couple of the like 8-bit style games, which is it's not great for readability. Like it's all caps, which is hard to read, and it's like the like pixel font style, which makes it a little harder to quickly grok the many, many different attributes of various things. But I have not found that. I mean, maybe it's just that I got through the hump of understanding, and so that like I know which parts that I need to look for when I'm looking for something. It's like, oh, I'm trying to figure out like which gun should I be using to shoot this thing. It's like, oh, I just, can scan really quick and see it. But I mean, I found that same problem in some of the other games that we've played, where it's just like it's easy to overwhelm with information, and having a really clear system of disseminating that information is nice, which Cogmind does an okay job at it, but not a great job.
What about the actual like combat loop? How do you feel about that? Because we played recently, we played Fights in Tight Spaces as just like an example here of like, yeah, that's extremely tactical. You have to think ahead with your moves, and like you're moving this guy here and that guy, and like sometimes the direct conflict. But like in this game, it's just like, there, dude, I shoot missile at, or no, okay, sorry, it's a little more complex than that. It's you see, okay, there's a dude, he's on the screen. First, you decide, do I want to attack dude or run away? Okay, there's some things that go into that decision. If attack, what is he weak to? Do I have that weapon in my inventory? If so, equip, and then like attack that guy. It's just basically once you have gone through this kind of this boring, I might add, like mechanic of like, do attack, don't attack, equip weapon, then it's just click on thing goes, oh, or not. Or sometimes you miss. And then you just have this like slugfest back and forth until it blows up. And that is the tactics in a nutshell. I mean, maybe you'll say something, oh, we can retreat into a corridor, and then that's where you use your rocket launcher to get them all where their numbers count for nothing. But I just didn't find that to be a huge part of the gameplay. Like, and maybe there was something I was missing there, but it seemed to me like optimal strategy was shoot the thing at the thing, and then it goes boom.
I think because combat here is not really the focus, that it's again,
what is
well, so the focus here is to escape. It is technically, I feel like, how did I build this? I was recently thinking of this game as Mecha Gear Solid, because you are stealthing your way around this facility. You can do combat, but you don't want to raise your alert too much, because then the combat just becomes overwhelming. And your goal is to, be sneaky and eventually, complete this mission objective that you have. Yes, the way that you've described the combat loop is one way that you can approach it if you are just walking in with a very normie mindset of run and gun, just I see thing, I shoot. Oh no, the consequences of my actions.
Do you run away or do you shoot? If you engage with something, you pretty much need to kill them, because otherwise they chase you down.
That's not true. If you hide, they will lose track of you. And you can optimize for that.
Yeah.
Strongly.
There are so
get the ECM suite and you just go hide in a weird corner and they don't find you.
Your options in this game. So you are presented almost constantly with just a barrage of parts on the floor, or things that you harvest from other robots by either blowing them up or buzzsawing them off, or by coming up to different machines and having them like pinata loot explode out and all those things. And that, I think, helps to really inform your tactical choices here, where you are on a floor and your goal is to find an exit to the floor, and there's 100 enemy robots in your way and you don't know where they are, and your goal is to, well, maybe I don't want to alert the entire floor and have 500 robots chasing me and shooting me at every turn. So maybe instead what I'll do is I'll equip some kind of melee implement to dig my way through different walls, and if I have like radar equipment that allows me to see the robot patrols that are coming down the hallway, and then maybe I'll wait and then they'll go back down the hallway and I can, now it's clear for me to move. Just like there's different weapon types that do different things. I think you kind of touched on, you shoot man, or like you equip a thing that does, the bonus damage to them and it kills them. But how it kills them can very drastically change what your gameplay strategy might be.
Right. There's the last run I did, I was using the EM pulse, where it like does integrity damage, and it just like you can kill stuff really easily, but it oftentimes corrupts the things that are left behind. So if you get hurt during that fight, you get left with a bunch of stuff that's not really usable. And so in some ways you get more stuff, and in some ways it's like a higher chance of it being corrupted, which you can kind of use or kind of not.
The risk reward with corruption though is like if you kill the robot and they drop all their stuff, but it's all corrupted, you can put it on. Right. But then it raises your corruption meter, where then like maybe sometimes like your gun will just fire for no reason, which if you're in like an NPC's faction hideout and you blow something up and own it, you know, you've made an enemy of them for life. Now your whole strategy has gone up in air, or you've blown up a reactor and alerted all the bots on the floor to where you are. Things can go sideways unexpectedly and really change up what you were thinking about doing.
And I feel like I feel like Will's going to disagree with this, but I think that it is a game of many interesting decisions because your robot is so constantly changing, and the relative to positions of you versus the things that you're around you is so, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm in a firefight with this thing. I'm going to win. And then a second later, another robot shows up and your heavy assault gun gets blown off of you. And like, now the calculus for this fight has changed dramatically and quickly. And you're like, all right, now what's the best way to flee? Like, oh no, they blew off my wheel, so I'm overburdened. It's like, well, how do I figure out like which of these things do I need to drop off so that I can get away quickly? And I think managing your weight capacity is a huge part of the game because your propulsion systems are constantly getting destroyed, and it's like, well, now you're overburdened, and it's not like Skyrim where that's just like a thing that happens every once in a while, and you just throw away your million herbs that you've collected, or the pots and pans, or the silverware you've stolen. Like you'll throw away things that you very much wanted to keep. You're like, oh, I have this sensor that I want, and I can get this other sensor, and then you're building towards synergy, and you're like, I have to discard this synergy because it's gonna come online in too long, and I won't be able to, like, I'll die now.
Yeah.
If I try and get that synergy later.
I feel like if this game had like all of the systems are there, all of the interactions between all of the decisions, and like there's lore there if you want it. Like for me, this is like very much a Scott game where it has like literally everything I could ask for, but maybe held back a little in the graphics department. And I understand why, just from like how the game was developed. But like if this was a game that had like Super Nintendo level graphical fidelity, but the same aesthetic, and was like, for the most, well, I guess, like, I don't know, the mouse controls in this game are very good. It is very keyboard heavy because there's a lot of command typing. But if this was a game that was like more or less playable with like a like Super Nintendo controller, this would be like Will's greatest game of all time, I feel like.
Yeah, give me Into the Breach graphics, that isometric version of this.
Actually, Into the Breach,
and
is
then
probably
you've got a good game. But I can't play it as is. It's just I don't care about the C shape on the I have struggled to like to make those decisions, to be like, oh man, I really hope I survive. I just go YOLO. Like, maybe I'll pull it off, or I'll die, whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, that's how I don't know. I just don't care about getting to the next level. Like, if I can't just roll the dice and get like some overpowered, ridiculous run, like, so, whatever, I'll just restart.
I have a thought. This game is Sneaky Archer the game. Like, the point is never to get into face-on combat with the troll. It's always to be like, it feels like every part of this game is the parts of Morrowind or Skyrim that I like, where you're like trying to break the system. You're trying to like figure out how to cheat your way through the walls, or like, oops, I went into an area that's too hard. Somehow I still managed to like get the thing and get out. Like, I stole the prototype level 5 fusion core, even though it's the first level. And now I have like a absolutely great energy system way before I should, and like I managed to sneak my way out with that. Like everything.
Well, that's the thing is like that prototype, that really cool thing in every other type of RPG. That's going to be on the pedestal behind the thing, be guarded by. But in this game, it's like here are 5 of them laying on the ground in one room.
Well, okay, so
What?
so
Like
let's
it's just such a maybe not all prototype, but like it's just like you walk into a room and here's 6 of this like thing on the ground, and it's just like this is how items are doled out to you. You either kill them off a dude, or they're just a bunch of them laying on the ground, and it just is weird. It's stupid.
And that's true for like the garbage tier stuff, where if you're in a panic and you're like, damn, I have had all of my wheels blown off. I need to figure out where the hell I can get some kind of legs so I'm not taking like 1,000 time units per turn, and all the other units are like going at warp speed around me because it takes forever to move. Like, yeah, you can find that room that has like all of the like the standard equipment,
6 data jacks.
Yeah. And where the really interesting fluid flexibility of this game comes in is that, like, yeah, you have your standard stuff there. There are prototype things like what you would find in like Binding of Isaac pills, or like unidentified equipment in other RPGs, where like, I need to identify this, but instead of a scroll of identify, like, well, okay, so there's some items that do that, but like you attach it to your little player character, and like you will identify it that way. And other times you can hack what that thing might be from like a terminal nearby, but sometimes it might be faulty. And generally speaking, those are better components. Will, in that stream that I was doing for you, where I was getting my shit rocked by all of the enemies in the like the garrison, I wound up exploring some more because I was trying to find like the hack installer component, and like I was like, oh well, I guess maybe I'll come up to this terminal here, and oh, it shows me that there's like 45 hidden exits on here. I'm like, okay, this must be part of the big update that they rolled out, and much more expansive than I thought it was. Digging around, come across this like what you're describing, the pedestal of forbidden equipment, where everything was like 3 or 4 levels higher than what I was at. I'm like, ooh boy, here we go. This is the money melon right here. Attached on some super like heavy weapons, and I was like, okay, now I'm in business. This is gonna like drive my gameplay for the next little bit. Ran around some more levels and floors, and so I got the hack installer so I could hack robots, but I still had the super cannon on me running around. And I got to this one area. I'm like, okay, in all of my runs before, I've gotten to this zone that's been pretty well heavily defended. Now I've got the super cannon. I'm a pretty decent like attack bot. I'm going to see how much damage I can do then and finally get to this thing that I've wanted to get at. It's just been dangling in front of me this whole time. Blow away all of like these super powered guard dudes. And I mean, eventually I run out of ammo. So then I get surrounded by like 2 or 3 other guys, and I have to like pivot and make those on the fly decisions. But I wound up like having that big heavy cannon blown off of my bot. Couldn't pick it up again, but I still had the hacking ability. So I'm surrounded by 2 or 3 robots. I go up and hack one of them to turn him into an ally. So now it's a 2v2 fight. Run up to the other bot and hack him while the fight's going on. So it's a 3v1. And then that bot eventually dies. We run into like this big, like very fragile library of mainframes. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can run into here and like do the thing. And then all of my ally robots are starting to attack everything else. Like everything is just like blowing up all around. And to me, this is the quintessential Cogmind experience here. Shoulder shrugging.
The fusion core, whatever thing that I found, I had to hack open a heavily like a door, a giant heavy door, and it was basically sitting on a pedestal in that room. Mm-hmm. Almost exactly the way you described. I mean, there was no visual pedestal, but it was like
that's it. That's what I mean.
It was like, a 3x3 room with this thing in the middle on the one square or something like that.
It's also worth noting that some of the NPC faction leaders that you can encounter do offer those kind of like run guiding parts. So your main through line of the game is, yeah, you're in this factory, or this robot multi-tiered floor structure. It's like 10 floors, so you have 10 levels. You start in like level 11 as your kind of like very tutorial zone, then you come up, and then you're like, the first couple levels are still very tutorially, but you can either go up or to a side branch, and side branches are typically like NPC story or faction related content. And early game, those side branches can give you like a good starting weapon, or they can give you access to one of the early factions, the Exiles, and they will give you basically like wall hacks for free right at the start of the game. But again, another really interesting trade-off here is that you align with them, it's going to piss off some other factions, where you can't just faction stack all of your, or like get everyone on your side. Basically, like you go with one, you're going to piss off two others, which I think is very interesting. It creates that kind of dynamic, like, okay, do I really want to go with this guy if I want to try getting this guy over here to invade the final level later with me and cause a big distraction? Trade-offs. But some of those faction leaders will give you, like Exiles, they'll give you like a choice of 3 items. You can take all 3 and be greedy. And typically these are like much higher power than what you have in the early game. These are like mid to late game items that are pretty decently good. And I think for the most part, all unique too. Like you won't find them anywhere else. But that will help define your run. You'll suffer some consequences from it if you're greedy, which is fun. And yeah, like there's one option for a giant laser on a pedestal that will blow up an entire room for you.
I mean, I'm still coming back to like no matter how you're putting it, like on a pedestal, like it's still like this little block on the ground. Like it's still like a weapon is like, it looks like a little plank, and it might say supercharged linear disruptor, and it's just has this most badass name ever. But you look at it and it's like a fucking 8 pixels on the line inside a block, and you're like, oh, okay. So while you're talking there, like, okay. Here, okay, so this I'm fixing Cogmind. Real is in these 3 or 4 steps. Okay, it's into the breach graphics and isometric. It's got a meta progression. That is one of the key things that, like, right now, if there was a meta progression, like if I was to use a certain like weapon enough times, or like, you know, like essentially dangle some kind of, even if it's a small unlock, and I keep coming back to the greatest game of all time, Slay the Spire, but like, yeah, you play, eventually you earn enough points and then you unlock a card, and the card's not like most of the time, like it's just like here's a card to keep you, like there's still things that you can get, another artifacts and these things. You can get them in the game normally, but this like makes it so you can choose it, and just give me that kind of progression to get me like over a hump. Maybe you guys are talking about like maybe I need to get in 30 hours. Right now I'm just like, why the fuck do I want to keep playing?
I would say that I get it has a steep learning curve. I feel like it does, like Scott was saying, the first level, like the tutorial level, it's like, it's really not a tutorial level. It's like a dump of loot, and you can like choose which things you want. I think that Cogmind could do more to onboard people. Like you have the choice to go through the like super baby zone, where you get taught a little bit more. Like you can do hacking more risk-free. Like maybe they could do something where it's like the first couple times you play it, there is a meta, like the level that you start at on like the normal game now, maybe that could be like meta progression 3, where you get the first couple times where you're going through and you're like, you haven't even gotten to the first floor yet.
Yeah, or just like trying escape from, like, give me the goal of escape from level 3, or like go up 3 flights and escape. Like it just
escape to Exiles or something.
Right. And then the next time it's 4, or do the Hades style, where it's just like, okay, yeah, you're trying to escape, but like at each time, like you can choose to like ramp up the difficulty. You start to add negative modifiers to yourself as your meta progression, weapons and things increase. So that way you kind of have these counterbalancing aspects of the game. Everything's getting harder, but also the things that you have to deal with it get more advanced. Like these are the kind of like advanced, like I want to say normal sort of good understandably good mechanics that we know about these days. And it just seems like this game is severely lacking because it doesn't have these core components for me.
Yeah, I think that the meta progression is knowledge, which is it's the same. I've had the same problem with some of the other games we've played, which is not like that requires such a huge investment to get to the point where the game feels good.
Mm-hmm. Dwarf Fortress style, like you have to like do
right,
100 hours of
like
tutorial.
It's a job, or where's the
like I've tried. I know, and there's just no payoff with it, or there was no payoff for that for me. And this game, I read the documentation. I sat there and I read every line of it just so I'd be like, this, I understand everything, I think, and it still didn't make the game more fun.
I think the comparison with Hades, now that I think about it, it makes more and more sense from like, yes, this game does not have a meta progression. I feel like if you were like a 400 level IQ Brainiac, you could beat this game your first time playing through, which I feel like this game would almost be better served if there was that kind of like Hades style. You know, your goal is to escape in both circumstances. Your goal is to progress through different biomes as you're going up the levels of this hell dungeon. Very much the same. You know, there are different NPCs that you can interact with that give you different modifiers and helpfulness, which is very key to how you're deciding how to do your run. But Cogmind 100% lacks that meta progression, even just in terms of like lore dump or hacks where like, oh, I've like entered this faction's area for the first time. Now like I can do these like new hacking abilities or something the next time that I play. I feel like that could be something interesting to add. But yeah, I think like there's some missing element of meta here that I think could be well integrated. But I think also for me, I yeah, like that learning curve of new meta stuff of like, oh, I want to go back and try this the next time I play. That's kind of like the only meta that you have right now.
Yeah, I understand where and how this game got to where it is, because that kind of meta progression is in some ways against the true traditional roguelike game. Like
which I might say is bad.
Which is probably bad. No, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I agree with it necessarily, but I can see how it got there. There was a certain purity in every run starts the same. There is no meta progression as a badge of honor. In that, like, it's like saying, do you want a meta progression for chess or for StarCraft? Like,
I do. I want the net aggression to max out at 40 to 60 hours. And then that's when it's 11 level playing field. And like, I think, but until then,
where you've earned all of your stuff.
Right. Exactly. And then that it's just like in StarCraft too. Right? You don't start with all the dudes right away. You slowly learn about them.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Your
or
army.
I mean, not chess, but to immediately give a counterexample against myself, when people start playing Go, they play on the 7x7 board or the 5x5 or whatever, and they slowly progress up to the board that breaks robots' brains until recently.
Right, and like that's actually a podcast on that recently. But anyways, that's all is a very known mechanic in games where you have the difficulty and you have the challenge level on two axes, and like you want to stay in this narrow channel that's extending out and to the right, which is just like so that you're always like, it's difficult but not too difficult, and your skill is good but it's always like being challenged. And so in the beginning you shouldn't be greeted with the possibility of maximum difficulty, in my view. I mean, that's just a known thing about human engagement. I mean,
and I feel like this game, the theme supports it more than most roguelikes would. Like if you're playing something like Dungeons of Dreadmore or just like the original Rogue, like if you died last run, there's no way to copy your spirit back to a different person. That's not how like the physics of those kind of games work. But this is like a weird robot game where you absolutely could have something that fits entirely within the theme of like, yeah, every time you die, you are able to transmit some limited amount of data back to yourself that increases your abilities, increases your knowledge, increases your where you can start and where you can do certain things.
Yeah, and you don't even really need like, it doesn't have to be a super strong connection to make those kind of like things like possible from a narrative like point of view. And like the game that we played recently, I mean, Binding of Isaac, there is a meta progression there. Like you can experience all of the things, like randomly come across them, but like eventually, like at least if I recall correctly, eventually you unlock things by doing certain things in the game. Like if you have a certain number of hearts, you unlock a character.
Right.
But a lot of times
There
there's
are
actually
no
like the
other-
artifacts or the things that you pick up in the game would be things that you unlock by just doing quirky things in the game. And it's like, well, it doesn't make sense that you couldn't do that from the beginning, but like, do we care that you can now get this thing that you couldn't? I don't know. It's just like, they're just slowly introducing complexity, and it's a way of just making it so that you're not hit with this giant wall of possibilities in the beginning.
Right. Or there's something that guides your build a little bit from the get-go. Like, I'm playing Plasma Mind, where EM weapons are 50% more efficient for me, and I cringe away a little bit because it's the same thing. It takes away the purity of the run. Like you start everything the same, and like Cogmind is such a game about morphing your way through these obstacles. Like as your parts are getting blasted on, you're just running, grabbing, smashing things on. Like it feels like an anime trope of like something where you're just like the robot absorbing things around it and building it into itself, and like you're harvesting scrap and you're building your new body out of it as you're going along, and
You're like a Katamari Gundam almost.
yeah, exactly. And I do think it would take something away to have stuff like that, but it may be the 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it might, it takes away from some bit, but it makes it so much easier to onboard and on ramp and gain a deep understanding of the game.
Yeah, if there was, I think like, I can't believe I never thought of this before, but you've both just like hit that absolute like, yes, of course, like nerve of like this game with like Hades style meta progression and Into the Breach graphics is like maybe the perfect game of all time. I think we've all agreed on that.
Indubitably.
It's at least something I could tolerate and try to get into. I think if you were to add like the third thing on that list, then would be, in my view, like not just synergies exposed through like the raw goodness of putting like, oh, here's the plus 50% to EM thing plus the EM thing, but like actually have unique sort of synergies form, like a Vampire Survivor sort of like, oh, you have this homing thing and this like rocket launcher, and now together but like they unify in a way that like maybe they has some added effect. I want an added effect level of synergy, not just this is good with that sort of a thing.
Oh, you mean like specifically like a set bonus almost kind of thing?
That I want set bonuses. That's exactly what I want. And that way it guides your run even more, and it makes those decisions about, do I drop this thing that helps my set out? If I get one more element, then I get, plus 20% shields, or like an extra like one hit like damage that gets negated because it's the Shogunari bonus, or I don't know, some kind of weird thing. But like that would be I think that'd be fun. I'm a big fan of fun, as it so happens.
Yeah. So one thing that Cogmind does that I think is really is good. You can play this game with Will. You're complaining about the graphics now. Did you play it on ASCII mode at all? There is I don't remember what the key is, but there is a button that you can press, and it just seamlessly shifts like a matrix style flow down into full ASCII mode. So you can play it in like true roguelike fashion. I think it would be interesting if you kept these same graphics. You just had one more thing where it's like, turn it up instead of down.
So like ASCII mode to what we currently have, and then what we currently have up to like the stupid casual like gamer level.
Yeah, like
that we're talking about.
Turn it up from original Nintendo to Super Nintendo.
I really want
And then
the. I
back
mean, I
down
want
to
the
a-
Into the Breach. I want to see like the little dudes, and I want to see them with the weapons that they actually have equipped, and I want them to move just a little bit. And then when they shoot, they
Oh,
have like a really cool animations, and like
oh
it's
my!
like
It would be difficult.
yeah. Then you have
There's
to
too
make it's not
many.
a
There's
solo
a
game.
lot of different combinations. It would be hard to have
I'm not saying it's easy,
yeah.
but I
But
want it to be
like
good.
seeing the Cogmind growing and
That would be
like Katamari
awesome.
Damacying his weapons on him and slowly like morphing into things. If you could
Mhm.
build some sort of like pixel generator that auto does
Yeah,
that, and maybe have it be not the same every time. Maybe it's like maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's a little bit funky because it's
that's exactly what I want. That's actually this is
like
a key part of the game I'm developing.
it doesn't integrate well every time because you're not like a custom built robot with all of these things that are you're not designed to have this robot arm data jack. It's like just like you're literally shoved into your weird side. It's like not sticking out of your shoulders, sticking out of like your torso.
That this is what I want. So when you're upgrading this game, you're choosing utility or power or whatever. I want you to be able to put every single thing into the propulsion slot, and I want you to have 50 legs if you want 50 legs, and I want to see that. Like, I mean, that's
I mean,
a
you
little
can
bit.
have it. You, I mean, you
I
can
know,
have a
I
lot of
know
legs.
exactly, and I just like that's as a core. Like, I don't have I have constraints around this with the game I'm developing, but like these are the things that I want you to be able to replace a weapon slot with a utility slot. I want to have this sort of like flexibility, and I think that would be. And that's something you can only do in like a cyborg world, or in this case, in this kind of like, mech warrior sort of world. And I think it's a really fun idea.
Future episode for sure. Will is basically describing the visual modifications of how Risk of Rain 2 works.
Oh, really? I mean,
Yeah, because the
I
more
played Risk of Rain like right when it came out, and I haven't touched it since then.
Yeah.
because if you get it, like, yeah, if you have like 3 pairs of like sniper glasses on, they show 3 pairs of sniper glasses on your body, which at like after like an hour and a half of your run, you look like an absolute clown running around. But it is quite great with all of the missiles and stuff flying off of your body. So Colin, have you beaten Cogmind? I'm sure you have at least once.
I feel like beat is such a weird term, but yes, I have. I think I have escaped one time.
Yeah,
and I've gotten to the like weird alien tech level floors a couple times. But
Spoilers. No, I'm not I'm never gonna get to the end, so it doesn't matter.
I feel like
We
it's
spoil
not
every
really,
game that we talk about, so it's no
I
surprise.
also feel like that's barely a spoiler. Like,
yeah,
there's so much weirdness that goes on with. I don't. I played most of my Cogmind not so recently, so I literally don't remember enough to spoil the true weird secrets of the upper floors. I do remember having like crazy teleporting stuff and absolute. It was just like producing energy and dissipating heat. You get like much more powerful, but then the enemies are like also doing crazy shit.
yeah. I think this game does power creep very well. Where
Yeah.
I'm very excited. Like later as the game goes on, I'm very excited to pick up new things because the titling of all the weapons is hilarious and great. Where you have like Super Omega Annihilator 9000, or there was one unique piece of equipment that I desperately wanted to try out. It was some kind of like brain emulsifier or something, where it was very much like its intent is to go in and just like permanently convert this enemy to an ally, and they can't resist no matter what. I'm like, yes, I 100% want to use this against some big bad guy.
I'm just looking through a list: enhanced gamma bomb array, gravity flail, perf cannon, hellfire missile launcher, impact mace, advanced or guided micro nuke launcher. Like, you get some wild stuff.
Omega cannon, the null cannon,
point singularity launcher. There's a YOLO cannon. I don't think I've ever seen that, but heavy wave gun. It's like there's stuff in here that I had absolutely not seen.
Yeah.
Because it's the thing on the pedestal behind the locked door, behind the guards, behind the alien shield that you have to go find the tractor beam to turn off or whatever.
One thing that we haven't talked about, which I 100% do not expect Will to have dived into this at all, but I think the writing in this game is unexpectedly very good.
Yeah, I remember, like, I want to be the kind of person who likes lore, and I usually don't that much, but I do feel like it has the right touch where it gives you just a hint of lore, but not like, but now I have to walk around the village and talk to every person because maybe they'll say something interesting.
There was so a lot of this game's lore comes through terminal hacks, like we've talked about before, and there are some NPCs that do give you like massive lore dumps of like, you know, oh, this is the whole explanation about this thing, and like I think the writing for those individual segments is very good at creating this world and helping you like believe that you're part of it, but also like there's an underrated aspect of like the broader world that this game takes place in general. And like when there's an achievement for it of finding out like the lore behind your player character, the Cogmind, that when I found out, I was like, oh my god, that's like big twistorama mode, where I'm like, oh my, like it all of a sudden made sense, and I had to like go and get more lore dumps of like, I need to find out more about this thing now because like this is my role in the story and all that. And it helps to like motivate me to want to go to those like secret like laboratory research branches to do the thing that's in there, and like how does that change the outcome of the ending. Like those are all things that are super interesting, that like every time that I boot up Cogmind, I'm like, okay, my goal is to go and do this. 3 or 4 different things happen along the way that change that directory wildly, but I think every time that does happen, I feel like, okay, that's fine. I have a new goal to shoot for, and I'm equally as interested in exploring what this other thing that I didn't even intend to happen at all has to offer.
Yeah.
Also, like beating the game does feel like a massive accomplishment.
It does. Like it's you're like, oh, I can't believe I actually did it. Like he crawls out and sees the sun, and I also feel like I survived. I made it.
I will say that I feel like the ending maybe needs to linger like a touch longer. I feel like it's over very abruptly, and it's also in only ASCII mode, which kind of threw me for a loop. But I think like if there were more like little kind of cinematics like that interspersed, there's a lot of interesting events that happen. But if like that kind of aspect was leaned on just a little more, maybe for Cogmind 2 or Super Cogmind, we'll get that. But yeah, I think like the first time that I beat the game, like having to escape the main doors of the top floor of the compound with all of my parts blown off, and I'm like bleeding and limping to the exit. These giant robots are chasing me down, shooting their huge cannons, and I finally get to that exit and get that ending cinematic. That was pulse raising. It was very much a sense of accomplishment in that sense.
Yeah.
Somewhat reminds me of like kind of the narrative, what was it called? The Machine Stops. This is like from a dystopia class, but like it basically like the premise is it's very similar, where it's like you're deep underground is this you know dystopian society, and eventually the purpose is to break free and get out of the surface, and like that's I guess kind of a recurring common thing, which is
or like what's the ice train Snowpiercer, where it's like you got to get your way from one place to the other, and you're going through, and it's getting nicer or more advanced as you go through it. I mean, I feel like that's it.
The ice. Oh yeah, I know. That's
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer. It's not called Snowpiercer. You're talking about the
train movie, the bad one. Like many people like a lot.
Oh, maybe I have no idea what you're talking about. Never mind.
Polar Express.
Polar Express. No.
The one
No.
with the disembodied, dead-eyed Tom Hanks CGI monster.
No, Snowpiercer. The
Was that the
movie.
one that had the molecular
No,
deconstructor in it?
maybe you're the only one who's heard of that one.
Have you guys not? How do you not know about Snowpiercer? It's got Chris Evans. It's got Tilda Swinton.
Who?
It's got Ed Harris in it.
I don't know who these people are.
Chris Evans
Ed
is,
Harris in The Rock. I mean, come on.
yeah, he's
His
the
most
Colonel from
famous
The
one.
Rock. Chris Evans is Captain America. Tilda Swinton is she's in stuff.
I don't know actors' names. I don't care about these
She
things.
has an
in general.
She was the
Academy
one that had
Award,
the
Will.
Sigix sheer
I don't
gun,
care
right?
about these things. I can't emphasize that enough. Celebrities are something I will never ever know about.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, I'm surprised that both of you haven't seen Snowpiercer. I didn't particularly like it, but it seems like it was well liked among the kind of people that we hang out with. So I'm surprised that you don't even know about it.
No, I thought you were talking about Monster Train, the game, but
No, it's just a movie. I mean, it's like 10 years old at this point.
I've already
Anyway,
forgotten the
I
name
feel
of
like
it.
we're
I've
really
already
off
forgotten the name of
topic.
it. Yeah.
We've
No, this is
Snowpiercer our way
perfectly
right
on
off
topic.
topic.
Okay.
Because now, well, let's jump into our rankings. I think
right.
I'll go first. This is my new number one game. I think kind of unsurprisingly. I think when Colin, when you first recommended this to me ages ago, like you should play this game Cogmind, I was like, I don't know. At first, I thought it was a Zachtronics game because you'd been
Yeah.
playing a lot of those recently. I'm like, kind of looks like a Zachtronics game. I don't know about this. But I think it's quick, like consistently,
Which is
like,
a huge, by the way, a huge endorsement if it was a Zachtronics game, because they're great.
So if you like Zachtronics games, you'll love this, and vice versa, probably. But I think I was kind of meh on Cogmind at first, but the thing that really hooked me was like, yeah, okay, I'm a robot running around shooting stuff, and like there were some enemies that I was fighting, and then out of nowhere there were just these friendlies that came like bursting through a wall of like, I'm here to help you and save the day. Come with us, and we'll take you to like our friendly faction lair. I'm like, okay, sure, and like,
Yeah, very surprising the first time it happened. You're like, I didn't think that was this kind of game.
right. And just the more kind of like personality and like aesthetic world building that there exists here that we didn't get in Sword of the Stars or Dreadmore, really I think just like catapulted it into like this is the best in class traditional roguelike, period. I don't think that there's any traditional roguelike that remotely comes close to this game in terms of its quality or its handcrafted thoughtfulness, and everything from like the diegetic music or like atmospheric sound design, like even like the little beeps and boops of like interacting with computer terminals and like the Matrix style hacking stuff.
The weird thumping of the machines.
All of the weird, yeah, like these vortex reactors and stuff that just kind of sounds like you're walking through like a furnace aisle of Home Depot. Like all like weirdly all ticks all the right boxes for me, and it's just this weird alignment of things that just line up perfectly. Yeah, like the graphics aren't perfect, but I think for what it's trying to do, it like chaos dunks it perfectly for me. So this is my new number one game. I was very excited when we picked this one, and I think I will be very excited to see how the Cogverse evolves over time. I think it's definitely a space to watch.
Is there plans for Cogmind 2?
I mean, I like the very dedicated community to the game kind of jokes and pokes and prods the developer about it. I don't know that like there's any serious developments. Like this game is listed on Steam as early access, but this game is done. Like I can't think of another thing that like you would need to add to make this game more feasible.
I can think of 3.
Sure, but
fair.
For what it's going for right now, feature game system design wise,
you could very easily release it as a finished product right now.
And yeah, you could have done that like a year ago, easy. But yeah, I think like for me, ticks all the right boxes. I don't think there's any serious plans for like a souped up like 2.0 or like a Cogmind 2 version to come out anytime soon. just based on like the developer's super open about his like game development like practices, and like this is how game development for something like this works. Stupid complicated. Like I couldn't do it in a million years. And I can only imagine that like if he tried to pivot this to like a Super Nintendo level game, he would need like a full studio to do so, just because you would have to rewrite the whole thing from the ground up just to appease Will's disdain for anything that's teeny tiny graphics.
Yeah. I have this coming in at my number 2 game, still behind FTL. I think FTL is a little bit more of a, I mean, FTL graphics is the same kind of like, that's the
FTL is much better.
No, in terms of like FTL graphics is the step up in graphics that Will could be looking for. Like a little bit more legibility. Like it's a very cohesive look, but it's not necessarily the most legible. I really like the depth of gameplay. I like the feeling that you could go and do a lot of stuff and that it would be there. There's no invisible wall at the edge. If you go into this thing, you might die, you might get absolutely stomped, but there is something behind every door.
Mm-hmm. I opened a lot of doors. There was a lot of empty rooms.
Those are hideout spots for when you need to cool off.
Metaphysical door.
I see.
But I think FTL still has a more well-crafted total game narrative. But I put it above something like Invisible Ink because I think it has just more complexity of gameplay and depth of gameplay. And I mean, I haven't played it for 100 hours, but I absolutely could see myself doing that and not having plumbed the depths of it after that amount of time. So I liked it a lot.
All right, and now for the correct answer.
Oh, that's weird. The podcast just ended. How did that happen? Uh-oh. Well, I guess we'll never know.
I think the best framing I could put it is the one I, before we jumped on the podcast, I said, yeah, it's just about as good as Risk of Rain. It's just about as good because you all love that game. And I also thought it suffered from a lot of critical problems. Ones that what's funny is that I point out all these problems, and then I see both of you shaking your heads. Yes, these are all things.
No, lies.
And so I think it's just so odd to me that they have somehow managed to get these top rankings. But I gave this game, it managed to hit my 6 out of 10 threshold for recommend. I gave it a 4.5 out of 10 because it was severely lacking in those critical things that were mentioned. And this in terms of overall rankings, it looks like it puts it at number 9 out. It's ranked in 3, tied with Swords of the Stars, The Pit, Din's Curse, and just below Risk of Rain. So 9 out of 16 games. Well, we're up to 16. We've really done those podcasts for a while. Yeah, I wanted to like it. I played this game like, I don't know, a year or 2 years ago for just a little bit. I was just like, nope, can't get into it. And this time I thought, okay, maybe if I'm going to watch more tutorials, I'm going to have him stream to me. Show me the fun, Scott. Show me what's so great about this. And he's like, and then I like this thing. And I'm just like, okay, all right. And it just never got into the point where I felt engaged. I tried. I really did, but...
Now, the fun of Cogmind comes from when you swap out your treads to wheels in what is called a half-track strategy maneuver, in which case it allows you to carry a lot more storage.
Scott, do you like the cog or the mind more? I'm more of a cog man.
The cog, because the Factorio has a cog, and and it's a 10 out of 10 game right there.
Based on what I know from the twist about the lore, I think I might have to be on the mind side a little bit.
Ooh,
I don't know if that makes me the bad guy in this story, or if the robot controlling the facility that we're in is the bad guy. But I guess until Will, reads through the 100-page tome that is the lore dump of this game,
the cog lore.
Yeah,
I'll just play some good games instead.
We'll wait for the movie adaptation, and then we'll get the real breakdown.
I mean, if the creator ever were to listen to this, which I hopefully you can take this, and know that it's nothing personal, but
no, he's gonna find you. You're gonna wake up. There's gonna be a Sigix broadsword in your pillow. It's gonna be 3 pixels, but it'll be there.
I would just say I get it, and like you have a target market, and that target market is not me. You appeal very much, obviously, to these 2 dunces. I mean, these 2 very entailed.
That's a crazy thing, though, is you are like square in the bullseye dead center of the target market. And I see your criticisms. I see how it didn't hook you, but I can imagine just a very slightly different you and a very slightly different game, and you just being like, oh, it's one of those things where Will gets way into a game and he's making spreadsheets.
Yeah, it just like the big thing. If it just had those 2 or 3 of those components that we talked about, it would have done that for me. But the graphics thing is real. Like I said, that 2 or 3 points, if this would have gone up to a 6.5 or a 7.5 out of 10, and at a 7.5 out of 10, that puts it at I think one of the top like 3 games that we would have played. But like it just didn't have it. If it just had Into the Breach, come on, or FTL level, like that's just like a half step above where it's at.
Yeah. Well, maybe someday.
Maybe they'll make this perfect game, like Scott was saying, and we can all look forward to that. Into the Breach 2.
In the meantime, next week we're going to be playing another game with maybe these are the graphics Will's looking for.
I think this is actually a half step. Yeah, this is getting
the magic of low magic age. It's a squares moving around, turn-based fog of war,
and to come back to the graphics part, this was a game that Will nominated over Crypt of the Necrodancer and Tiny Rogues for whatever reason that I saw.
I have good reasons. I can tell you why.
It's because Will hates bullet hell.
I hate bullet hell. Obviously, that's one. I just don't want to play those games. And the other one, like the playing a game to the beat and like 50% of the players not getting past level 1. Like I get that it's novel, but I don't like. It's like a very maybe it's worth playing at some point, just a little bit, but like I don't want to put a whole podcast into it. Just like the stupid mechanic of
it's novel in the way that getting stung by a scorpion would be novel.
Right, exactly. It's just like I get it. I don't like timing based games. I like judgment based games, and that's why I just like the bullet hell sort of games. I just and I say that, but I love the bullet heaven games, or at least Vampire Survivors. Like I don't know, maybe I'm open to it in the future, but I prefer the one that we were playing.
Well, you can seek us out on Mastodon at grogpod@gamedev.place. You can send an email into the show should you so desire to have your voice read by one of our great bassy burly voices. grogpodzone@gmail.com, or you can find all of our rankings and data and all that fun stuff on our website at grogpod.zone. But next week we're gonna be rolling for some initiative. We're going to ideally having some weak little wizards die on their first campaign session. And maybe we will see the return of Will's D&D character for our next episode, Low Magic Age.
I'm very much looking forward to it. It did look like a D&D combat simulator. And
it's I think it's supposed to be basically based entirely around like version 3 point something of D&D, and I think we were playing like 5th edition. Is that right?
Playing 5th edition.
Yeah.
I mean, D&D, that's another. I couldn't get into that, so I'm a little bit worried. But hopefully, because
this
it's
is
mostly
all the
optimization and
this is all the fighting
tactics.
and none of the role playing. So
yeah, fuck the role playing. That's what makes D&D the worst thing out there. Oh, here's a lore drop. Oh, and another stupid character with the same. Oh God. I mean, no offense.
How many enemies can we make with one podcast episode?
Yeah.
Colin's fighting his tongue as hard as he can.
Yeah, as a DM, Colin's just like, I hate you. With that one voice.
The Parsipan Isles will
You'll never know. You'll never know the fear of Jacques Rock pointing at you.
No, I will not.
I'm terrified.
I will happily live my life without that.
Well, we're going to be pointing at you, listener, next time for our episode on Low Magic Age. And then this is the part where I come up with a new segment to outro the show. And we're done.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we need a
We didn't think about it beforehand.
we need another bit that we do at the end of every episode. A la the hi, I'm your
Mhm.
your Y45 defender.
Ape-related pant hooting.
Yes.
Okay, now I'll
Just-
hit the stop recording button.